Hi guys, I want to make the case for a people's vote, or as I should say, a ratification vote. Now, if you voted Leave or Remain, it doesn't matter. I kind of urge you to listen to this because I think it's relevant to everybody. Um, so, what I'm arguing for is a referendum, not not a rerun of the 2016 referendum, but a referendum to gauge where we are with regards to public opinion. Now, I know that there are many people out there that would claim that this would be undemocratic for some reason. But of course, a democratic vote by definition is democracy. And you can't thwart the will of the people by gauging the will of the people. So I've really got very little time with that argument. The country's embarking on the most serious and complicated undertaking since the Second World War. And as such, we need to ensure people are consulted throughout this procedure. That's democracy. The general public were asked to make a decision in 2016 and they were given a binary choice. Did they wish to leave the European Union or did they wish to remain? However, at no point was it spelled out what leave would mean. For example, no one said we would leave the customs union or the single market. In fact, many Brexiters said that the exact opposite. They said that nobody's talking about leaving the customs union or nobody's talking about leaving the single market. Now, a lie that has been circulating widely for some time now is that the government leaflet, the one that was sent to every household in the United Kingdom, said, apparently, according to this lie, that it stated in there that we would be leaving the single market in the customs union if we voted to leave the European Union. But that's not true. It did not say that at all. Nowhere in the leaflet was that said. And all you have to do is look at the leaflet if you still have it, or go online, Google it, and check. It's there on the government website. But this is a powerful lie because it makes people believe that people were completely informed about the decisions they made in 2016 and that going against those decisions would somehow be undemocratic. It's a way for people to try and underline that. And it's a prime example of a lie that's perpetrated that takes a life of its own, takes on a life of its own. And this particular lie is one of the main tenets of the people that argue against a people's vote, or a ratification referendum, as I prefer to call it. So they imply that everyone who voted Leave voted as a homogenous group, which of course simply is not true. People voted for a whole raft of reasons, and I would suggest leaving the customs union, for example, wasn't necessarily high up on many people's lists. So this is the crux of the issue. Why did people vote to leave the European Union, and what were they expecting from it? Well, the answer is obviously complicated, and it stands to reason there were a myriad of reasons and expectations that splits the Leave vote in so many different segments, many of which contradict each other. The Leave campaign ultimately won because it was able to distill its message into simple sound bites like taking back control. But then they never actually had to prove that we'd lost control. Whereas the Remain campaign, on the other hand, ultimately failed because its message was far more complex. Politicians that had allowed the EU to be blamed for domestic policy failure suddenly found themselves trying to defend the EU, but they couldn't do it properly because by doing that, it would mean that they would have to admit that past failures were actually their own fault. So given there's no coherent vision of what Brexit would look like, and given the closeness of the result, the sensible thing for the government to have done would have been to aim for a compromise. For example, leave the European Union but join the EEA. That would have honoured the referendum, but also enabled the country to come together. However, they chose not to do that. What Theresa May did was she went to the country by calling a general election, which meant she then lost her majority. So here's another one of the democratic arguments I'd like to make. The general election happened after the referendum of 2016. The MPs that were returned to Parliament during that general election are now in deadlock. There's an impasse in Parliament. And so you could argue, in fact, I would say it's a fact, that because Parliament is our representative, they are our representatives, Parliament are now expressing the will of the people. The will of the people in 2016 has now been superseded by the will of the people as expressed through the votes in that general election. So now let's come to today. Now, given the Labour Party have said they will vote against any deal that doesn't meet their tests, there's no majority in Parliament for Chequers. There's no majority in Parliament for Canada plus 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 or Super Canada. And anyway, that wouldn't resolve the Northern Ireland issue. The arch Brexiters, for example, the ERG, will never allow a Norway-style deal, EEA option. And no withdrawal agreement would be catastrophic because we would be leaving every single agreement that we have with and via the European Union, and we would be the only country in the world to attempt to survive solely on WTO rules. Even Mauritania doesn't do that anymore. So that's the will of the people at the moment as expressed through Parliament. Now, we need to break this impasse. And I would say to fear democracy and yet claim to defend democracy, as some people seem to do, is completely disingenuous. We've embarked on this journey without ever knowing what the destination would be. We simply couldn't have known, and we still don't know what that is going to be. We started this with a referendum. It therefore stands to reason that once we finally understand what the destination is going to be, we should then check it's okay. Because that is all that this is about. It's just checking that it's okay. If it is okay, then so be it. By the time the referendum result is in, the government will not be able to backtrack on it. We'll be too far down the line. It will have to be implemented. If, however, people have changed their minds, then again, so be it. That is where the people now stand. Either way, democracy wins. So whether you voted Leave or Remain in 2016, it is in everyone's interest to call for a referendum to ensure the course that is being undertaken has majority approval of the people. Because failure to do that and implement a solution that nobody wants, let alone a majority, would be one of the biggest travesties of democracy this country has ever seen. So I urge everyone watching, push for a referendum, lobby your MP, sign petitions, use social media. Then once we have that secured, if you voted Leave in 2016 and still believe in it, then democratically fight your corner and make your case. If you voted Remain, then do the same. This time around, people will be more informed, more accustomed to fake arguments that were perpetrated by both sides of the original campaign, and with a Brexit destination laid out, more able to decide if this is what they want or not. That's democracy. Democracy is including people throughout the process. And to recap, the general election that was held after the referendum, the results of that general election are now really the will of the people, and that is deadlock as expressed by Parliament. So let's break this impasse, let's get another referendum going, and let's decide, once we know the facts, whether we really want to leave the European Union or if it's better to remain as we were. Thanks very much for listening.